By now, a lot of people watching this have a Pixel 10 phone. You've already seen me talk about how excited I am about it and give you tips on what you should do with it when you first take it out of the box. As excited as I am about the series though, I can't help but think about all the things Google passed over with the Pixel 10 phones. Features that Google could have included, but decided to skip. So let's talk in depth about these features today, starting with the feature I most wish the Pixel 10 series had: silicon carbon batteries. So this sounds like some sort of chemistry lesson, but I assure you it's not as boring or complicated as that. For about 30 years now, phones have used rechargeable batteries based on lithium-ion construction. This is a good technology that's efficient and cheap. However, over the past few years, huge advancements have been made in batteries with a different construction using silicon carbon. There are two big advantages to silicon carbon batteries. First, you can store more energy in them. For example, a lithium-ion battery that holds 5,000 milliamp hours of energy must be a certain size to fit it all. But a silicon carbon battery that is the same size could hold about 20% more today, and could even hold much more as the technology gets better. The second big advantage here is that you could make silicon carbon batteries much smaller without losing out on energy. For example, you could cram 5,000 milliamp hours of energy into a battery a fraction of the size of a lithium-ion battery, which would allow you to make smartphones thinner or smaller without losing out on battery life. In other words, think of it like the gas tank in your car. A silicon carbon battery is like discovering a new gas tank that's the same physical size as your old one, but can hold 20% more fuel. You get to drive further without stopping. Or you could have a much smaller gas tank, but still get the same range, leaving more room in the car for other things. These aren't some far-fetched ideas either. The OnePlus 13, for example, has a silicon carbon battery inside, as does the Nothing Phone 3. So this is a technology that Google could have used in the Pixel 10 series, but didn't. So you might be wondering why. Well, I don't work for Google, so I can't say for sure, but if I had to guess, I would say it's because they want to wait until the technology has matured more. Just as an example, if silicon carbon batteries only last a few years before degrading significantly, Google would want to know that before putting them in their phones. So Google is probably waiting for smaller companies like Nothing and OnePlus to test things out before committing. Samsung is probably doing the same thing because they also don't have any phones with silicon carbon batteries, and neither does Apple. I don't know about you, but battery life is probably the most important thing about not only smartphones, but all electronic devices I own. My phone, my laptop, my smartwatch. I want everything in my life to have as much battery life as possible, so I don't need to feel like I'm constantly looking for a charger. I was hoping Google would work silicon carbon technology into the Pixel 10 series, but maybe the Pixel 11 series? Anyway, the next thing on my list also has to do with power, and that's faster charging. Even if the Pixel 10 series had the best batteries in the world, they would still eventually need to be recharged. For a long time now, Pixels have been some of the slowest charging smartphones around. To Google's credit, it has gotten better at this recently, especially with the Pixel 10 series, which are now faster than ever, especially the 10 Pro XL, which charges just as fast as the Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra. However, they still pale in comparison to many other phones out there, sometimes to an embarrassing degree. Let's talk about the OnePlus 13 again. Here in the United States, the OnePlus 13 charges almost 3 times as fast as the Pixel 10, Pixel 10 Pro, and Pixel 10 Pro Fold. It also charges almost twice as fast as the Pixel 10 Pro XL. The Nothing Phone 3 also charges faster than every phone in the Pixel 10 series. Even the 2025 Motorola Moto G Stylus, a phone that costs just $400, charges faster than any Pixel 10 phone. Frankly, this is kind of embarrassing. Google should be at the forefront of this, not trailing way behind. Pretty much everyone watching this and everyone who owns a smartphone of any kind appreciates fast charging. So why wouldn't Google want to offer that to its customers? Once again, I don't work for Google, so I can't know for sure. But my guess for the reason why Pixels don't charge fast can be summed up in one word: Apple. In 2024, the Pixel 9 series charged a little bit faster than the iPhone 15 series. With the iPhone 16 models, Apple pushed charging speeds to be a little faster. Now, with the Pixel 10 series, Google has also pushed speeds a little bit faster. My theory is that Google thinks that whatever speeds are good enough for iPhone users, good enough for Pixel users. I really hope Google stops looking to Apple for stuff like this and starts looking to its competitors here in the world of Android. Right now, except for Samsung, pretty much every major Android manufacturer makes phones that charge twice as fast as Pixels. And that's just sad. Moving away from charging, let's talk about the performance a bit, specifically when it comes to gaming. One of the biggest upgrades for the Pixel 10 series this year is a new processor called Tensor G5. I talk about this a lot more in this video up here, but I'll summarize things real quick. For tasks like running apps, processing on-device AI, taking photos, and all the other stuff you do every day, Tensor G5 performs much faster than any Tensor chip before it and has better battery efficiency too. However, Tensor G5 is not much better for gaming. The GPU data I found shows that after a big boost early in your gameplay, the GPU flattens out to about the same performance level as older Pixels. So that's not great. This is all down to Google not investing much into the GPU itself. I don't really know why this is. It's possible Google decided to put all its resources into making Tensor G5 better for everyday tasks and just ignored the GPU. It's possible Google knows that hardcore mobile gamers out there won't even think about getting a Pixel for their gaming needs, so why bother? It could just be that a significant gaming upgrade would cost too much and force Google to increase phone prices, and it wanted to avoid that. Whatever the reason, it's still disappointing that gaming on the Pixel 10 phones is just going to be okay. I'll be upfront about this. I'm not a big mobile gamer, so this doesn't really matter too much to me personally. However, I love Pixel phones and I want as many people to use them as possible. And there are millions of people out there who write off Pixels immediately simply because they aren't good for gaming. So I'm hoping Google increases the GPU power, not for me, but for everyone else. I want people to be able to buy a Pixel and game on it comfortably, and Tensor G5 just isn't there yet for that. This brings me to another significant problem with the Pixel 10 series. Each year, Google comes up with ways to convince us to take more photos and videos. With the Pixel 10 series, we have a feature like Camera Coach, which uses AI to give you instructions on how to take better photos. We also have Auto Best Take, which captures up to 150 photos to get the best representation of a group shot. And we can't forget that the Pixel 10 Pro and Pixel 10 Pro XL have much better image stabilization, which should make recording smooth videos easier than ever. The problem with all this, though, is that the base level of storage hasn't changed in years. Way back in 2020, Google released the Pixel 4a, which was the first smartphone from the company to have a base storage configuration of 128 gigabytes. Since then, this hasn't changed. Even now, in 2025, the Pixel 10 and Pixel 10 Pro have a base amount of storage of 128 gigs. Now, Google did eliminate the 128 gig storage version of the Pixel 10 Pro XL, so that one starts at 256 gigabytes of storage. However, it's still charging the same price for it, a whopping $11.99. The same thing goes for the Pixel 10 Pro Fold. It starts at $256, but it costs $17.99, which is a ton of cash. I really wish the Pixel 10 and Pixel 10 Pro started with 256 gigs. They are not cheap phones, and storage is one of the cheaper parts inside any smartphone. It wouldn't cut into Google's profits too much to offer more storage without increasing the price. Just think of all the goodwill that they would get from Pixel fans and people who are thinking about buying Pixels but are on the fence. I was really hoping this would happen this year, but I guess we'll need to wait until 2026. Maybe. We're coming down to the last thing here, and it's something that is a huge deal for a lot of people out there: voice over LTE. All right, imagine this. You've saved up for a big international trip. You land in a new country, connect a new eSIM, and you can't make or receive phone calls. Not because there's no signal, but because Google doesn't allow your phone to make calls in that country. That's the reality for Pixel users in many parts of the world, and frankly, it's unacceptable. When you aren't connected to Wi-Fi and make a phone call with a Pixel phone, your voice communication happens on a 4G LTE network. This is known as voice over LTE. LTE is ubiquitous across the populated world, so it's easy to make phone calls pretty much anywhere. The problem here is that Google only enables voice over LTE support in countries where Pixel phones are officially sold. When you take your Pixel to a country where it isn't sold, it may not be able to make calls over the local LTE networks. In the past, the phone could fall back to older 3G networks, but many countries have shut down or are in the process of shutting down their 3G networks. This means if you're in a country without 3G And without official Pixel voice over LTE support, you simply can't make or receive cellular calls. It's crazy. This is also a huge problem for people who live in countries that don't sell Pixels but want to import a Pixel anyway. This is so bizarre to me because these people are so into Pixels and want one so badly that they're willing to go through the hassle of importing one from another country. And how does Google reward them for that? By making it so they can't make phone calls. It's really lame. And before you try to tell me that this isn't Google's fault, it unfortunately really is. In this Android Authority article, the regulatory body in charge of smartphone connectivity plainly lays out that Google could enable voice over LTE in all countries everywhere. It just doesn't do that for some reason. Myself, I travel all over the world for both work and fun. Thankfully, most of the places I go sell Pixel phones. But when I went to Brazil for a vacation in 2024, it was difficult to make phone calls because the country is phasing out 3G networks and Pixels aren't sold there. Countries like South Africa and Indonesia don't have 3G networks at all and don't sell Pixels. So travelers going there literally can't make phone calls without Wi-Fi. I have no idea if people at Google will watch this and take anything I say seriously, but I really hope at least a few of these problems get fixed with the Pixel 11 series. I love Pixel phones. I'm calling myself the Pixel guy after all. I've already bought the Pixel 10 Pro and I think it will be the best phone of 2025. But Pixel phones lacking features like the ones I've talked about here can sometimes make it difficult to convince people to get on board with them. So yeah, Google, if you're watching this, please take some notes. But now, I want to know what you think. What do you wish the Pixel 10 series had? What features do you hope future Pixels get? Let me know down in the comments. And if you want to see a video that's pretty much the opposite of this one, why not check out this video which goes over why I'm a Pixel guy. And if you would subscribe to my channel, that would also make my day. Anyway, I'll see you all down in the comments.